So the purpose of today's event is to bring the community together and to show that we will not tolerate the kind of ugly incidents that have been occurring over the past few weeks. And we also want to show our appreciation to Police Chief Stone, as well as Dr. Kuska, our superintendent of schools, for taking this seriously and really doing everything they can to make sure that this kind of thing never happens again. There was a number of incidents of graffiti that included swastikas and the N-word and homophobic slurs that happened in not just one school but multiple schools, and it happened repeated times. So this wasn't just a one-time thing. It has been occurring a number of times now. And it was just time that somebody addressed it publicly, and we stood up as a community to say that this is not the kind of thing that we tolerate. A number of people from our town government will be speaking, as well as members of the local clergy, and community members who are concerned about what's going on.
Thank you all for being here. I'm Rabbi Jennifer Rudin from Congregation Derech HaShalom, and I'm honored to be here today to help us all gather to do three things. First, to mark this Veterans Day and thank all of the veterans in our community and beyond for their service to our country and their commitment to freedom that's made it possible for us to be here today. Second, I hope that during our time together, you truly feel how much all of us are expressing our gratitude. And speaking for you, I hope, in expressing your gratitude to the Holliston Public Schools and to the Holliston Police Department for their leadership and their commitment to truly making Holliston a community where there's no room for hate. We want to express our appreciation to the Holliston Police for being here today and helping to keep us all safe and secure. And I also want to take a moment to give honor to each of you. Your presence here today is powerful. It sends a message that there's no room for hate in Holliston, that together we stand and speak out and acknowledge that these incidents that happened are not okay, and that we're committed to creating space for all of us to work together to bring peace and security to our children and to our families and to the whole community. Holliston has always been a place where families and communities felt safe and welcome, and I'm thrilled that so many people want to work with us to bring that feeling of safety and community back. So I invite you first to join me in a moment of silence with respect for our veterans and for the importance of this day. And I'd like to offer a blessing for our veterans. It's called To the Soldier, to the Veteran by Alan Solovoy. These things I do not know: the sound of a bullet, the power of a blast, the blood of a comrade, the depth of your wound, the terror at midnight, the dread at dawn, your fear or your pain. These things I do know: the sound of your honor, the power of your courage, the blood of your wound, the depth of your strength, the terror that binds you, the dread that remains, your dignity and your valor. For these things we pray: the sound of your laughter, the power of your voice, the blood of your yearning, the depth of your healing, joy that will free you, hope that remains, and the wholeness and love. We're going to begin today with some welcome from Lino Covarrubias, the CEO of Jewish Family Service of Metrowest and a retired U.S. Navy commander. As a veteran, Leo is going to speak to how this rally marks the importance and the honor of Veterans Day, as well as to our work together ahead. Leo.
Thank you, Rabbi Rudin, and good afternoon, Holliston. I'm so happy to see you here today. I want to first thank Josh Mann for inviting us today. We have quite a bit of community leaders here this afternoon to really heal and to really importantly figure out the future of the Holliston's work when it comes to fighting hate. Today I'm here with you as not only the CEO of Jewish Family Service of Metrowest, but also as a veteran. And I cannot be at a better place as a veteran on Veterans Day than at a rally just like this to combat hate. I can tell you in the 22 years that I served in the Navy, I stood to watch. I thought about my country, I thought about my family, and I thought about my community. And it takes a community to really fight hate. And we have plenty of speakers, some of my colleagues today, that we really want to do is work together. That Holliston knows you're not alone in this fight, because it is a fight, it is a struggle, that you have an entire community in Metrowest. That you don't have to do this alone. We're here to help you. And I will say I want to commend the town of Holliston, the school district, the police department, because you've done a lot when these incidents have happened the last 3 weeks. And we're here to definitely say thank you, and we're here to say we're here to help in any way possible. Thank you for having us here, and happy Veterans Day. And actually, I'm going to have Rabbi Rudin come back, because I don't know what the schedule is. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Rabbi Mimi Michner from Temple Beth Torah in Holliston. And Mimi is going to talk with us about how we can forge a new path together, forging a path stronger, forging a path to peace and to welcome and to bringing Holliston back to that place of joy where it's always been. Thanks, Mimi.
Thank you. Well, that is certainly a tall order. Good afternoon, everybody. Some of you, when I look around in this space, you can't hear me. All right. You know what? How about now? All right, that's better. So as Rabbi Rudin said, my name is Rabbi Mimi Michner. I'm the rabbi at Temple Beth Torah here in Holliston. It's nice to see some familiar faces from our community. And it's nice to meet those of you who I've not, or to see those of you I've not had a chance to meet. So I look forward to connecting. I want to thank everybody for taking the time to come out here this afternoon, to take the time to really stand together as a community in one voice, saying that we will not stand for hatred against anyone, we will not stand for anti-Semitism, we will not stand for racism, we will not stand for homophobia as a community. So I come to this gathering this afternoon both with a sense of disappointment and with a sense of hope. I think many of us are deeply disappointed that we are in a community where there are those who genuinely believe that there are certain members of our community, members of the Jewish community, members of the LGBT community, people of color, who are just people who do not belong, who are fundamentally people who maybe should not belong in our community, who are less than and should be treated as such. This is a deeply disappointing reality for us to reckon with as a community. What is also disappointing, as I have heard from some of my colleagues, unfortunately, is that this is not new. That we as a community for a long time have been wrestling with what it means to become a truly multicultural, multiracial place. And that for many years these issues have been simmering under the surface. So I am disappointed also to have learned that over these past few weeks. Now, when I was figuring out what I wanted to say this afternoon, I was brought back to a very sort of vivid image in the Hebrew Bible, in the Torah, which we read last week in our synagogue. This is an image that comes from the story of Jacob and Esau, from their birth, two very important biblical ancestors. And when they are, before they're even born, there's an image of them in the Torah where it says that the two of them were struggling in their mother's womb with one another. And the Hebrew Bible uses very specific language when talking about their struggle. They don't say two individuals were struggling. The Torah says two peoples, two nations were struggling in the womb of their mother. And I think of this image because what we're facing as a community is really a struggle within ourselves over who we want to be. We are like two nations in one womb struggling over what our future will look like. But what's very interesting is that the Talmud, which is another source of wisdom for the Jewish people, offers a very important lesson about this image, about this story of struggle. It says that even though it might seem like what's happening in Rebekah's womb is a struggle between two peoples, there's a way to imagine that what happens moving forward is that both prevail, is that all people get to enjoy success and get to enjoy prosperity in the time to come. And what I think is so important for us in this is that it's an opportunity for us to choose. We get to choose to have a different path, not a path of struggle, not a path of one prevailing over the other, but a path where all of us come together to listen to one another, to learn, and ultimately to join together in building a community that doesn't stand for the kind of acts that we saw this past week. So I wish all of us that togetherness. I wish all of us that path forward, and I hope everyone here will continue being part of this work of forging a path forward together. Thank you, everyone.
Our next speaker is going to be Benjamin Sparrow from the Holliston Select Board, here to share some words about community with us.
All right, just to make sure everybody can hear me. So I want to say thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to speak. And I wanted to begin by reading a letter that the Select Board had read into public record on November 1st. The town of Holliston is an inclusive community that welcomes people of any race, religion, and sexual orientation. The town of Holliston in every endeavor strives to achieve a quality of life for residents that is free from fear and intimidation. The most recent events of vandalism in two of Holliston's public school buildings have again raised concerns that bigotry exists within Holliston. The Select Board, in the strongest way possible, denounces bigotry in any form or expression. We agree with the Holliston Public Schools in their stated belief that the school environment must be an emotionally and physically safe space. And we support the Holliston Public Schools in efforts to develop socially responsible citizens who are ready for diverse and multicultural society. We recognize events like those of the past week reiterate the urgency for dialogue and action to create an inclusive community for all individuals. We also recognize that the conversations are difficult, complex, and will be ongoing. We assure the community that the Select Board is committed to an active role in moving our community towards greater inclusiveness for all individuals. Unfortunately, these recent events are not isolated. In fact, we can look back on Veterans Day to realize that we've fought wars about some of these distasteful ideas. But we are coming together today to show the power and value of inclusivity. We must remind ourselves that progress is not absolute. Despite passing a law or defeating an enemy, some of these insipid ideas continue to exist. The work of creating an inclusive and safe space for all types of people is important and ongoing. If you look around, there is hope. I am hopeful because there are so many who have come forward to say enough is enough and these actions are wrong. We look around and we can see this is a community dedicated to inclusivity and listening to other voices in an effort to create a better place. This is a challenging moment where it is important to speak up and take a stand against bigotry in any form. Holliston is better than that, and this gathering shows that. While we are here now, we have a responsibility to look to the future. I hope that we can move forward and create a better community for tomorrow and always work towards that goal, even if the work is hard and might not appear fruitful. My son actually goes to preschool right next door. My grandfather, my mother, my father, my uncle, and I have all lived here and grew up in Holliston. It's a special place, and it's why I came back. I want my son to know that this is a community that welcomes all people and embraces them for who they are. Intolerance is wrong and must be denounced. As we work on building a better community, we need to listen more. We need to ensure everyone is heard and valued for their perspective and experience. We have the ability to define ourselves and define our community. These archaic and hateful symbols, words, and ideas are not who we are. Holliston is a place with appreciation for others, and this rally is a sign of what defines us. Members of the community are stepping up and coming together. Holliston is a great place to live because of the beauty and diversity of the people and the perspectives they bring. The warmth and character of this place is illustrated by the people who live here and how we treat one another. So I want to say thank you. Thanks again, and thanks to Josh for putting this all together. So thank you.
When Josh stepped up less than a week ago to put this together for all of us, I was truly amazed by the number of people who came forward, not just from this community, but from surrounding communities to support us. And so I'm honored to introduce the Reverend J. Anthony Lloyd, pastor of the Greater Framingham Community Church and convener of the Framingham Stakeholders, a solidarity group against racism that promotes diversity and inclusion. Thank you so much for being here, Reverend Lloyd.
Good afternoon, Holliston. It's good to stand here with you and to be with you. I'm mindful of MLK saying that injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere. And so today we come together. It is not a coming together to somehow take back our community, because you have never lost your community. As our speakers have said already, these here acts of injustice, they are not Holliston. You're Holliston. You're Holliston every single day that you get up, go to work, send your children to school, play, and contribute to the community. I would encourage you today that this is about a struggle. It's about voices being heard and every voice being heard. It's about a consistent voice being heard that says in each and every one of us, there is the image of God. And when these kinds of things happen, they scar the very image, the very stamp of God that's on all of us. And so our coming together in a moment like this is to say, the image that God has stamped on us, it's still here. It's in Holliston. This is who we are and what we are about. It's been referred to the fact that on this day is Veterans Day. It's a day where in the midst of everything that goes on, we pause long enough to say, I remember. Remembrance is important. Remembrance is what gives us our lift to say, I can go forward. And on a day like today is a day when we say and remember all those men and women who stepped up to the challenge because they believed in something that was larger than themselves, and they made sacrifices for community, so that a moment like this, all of us can gather. And what a day it is for us in Holliston. for Metrowest, to say, I recognize the challenge, the call to challenge, and the sacrifices that were made on behalf of this country. And those kinds of challenges are facing us now here in Holliston. So now's the time to say, I feel renewed, I feel hopeful, I'm believing that, yes, it means all of us together standing up to the challenge and willing to make a sacrifice. I want you to know, I have parishioners who live in Holliston, and I want you to know that they too recognize the challenge and say, I'm willing to make the sacrifice. Do so. Do so because you are part of community. Do so because community is needed. And do so because you believe in Holliston, that indeed it is your community. Your presence today says you accept the challenge and are willing to make the sacrifice. Blessings on you.
Our next speaker is Thomas Ellis from the Board of Health, Holliston.
Good afternoon, everyone. Oh, wow. It's kind of hard to follow after these great speakers, the Reverend and the rabbis. But listen, first I just want to thank Josh for inviting me to be a part of this event. And also I want to thank all the veterans for their service. I mean, today is, in fact, a very special day. I'll just say this. I'll introduce myself. So I'm Thomas Ellis. I serve on the Board of Health. I serve as chair. And I've lived in this community for about 4 years. And I'll be honest, I think Holliston is a wonderful town. It is a great place. It has beautiful homes, churches, synagogues, good schools, and overall very kind people. I have been given the opportunity to serve. Like, not as great as the veterans, but I'd served this community on the Board of Health. And I tell you what, it's been an honor and a privilege over these last couple of years. And as a resident here, you know, I feel inspired by the people like yourself, who are here today to demonstrate. And I'm grateful to be a part of this. With that said, of all the great things that are out there and that we're experiencing in this town, unfortunately, there's not so great things too. And these are things that we have to address and we have to nip in the bud. I recently heard about some of these symbols of hate through my wife. She's on Facebook. I'm not on Facebook, so I don't mess around with that. But anyway, I found out, and I talked to Josh and others, and I was appalled, absolutely alarmed that this happens in this great, quaint, beautiful town of ours. So, you know, I said to myself, okay, and I experienced these things growing up as a child. Very commonplace. But I said, wow, we're in 2021 and this is still going on? But it does. Hate continues. And it's up to us to try to stop it. So I just have a few questions before I continue on. And you don't have to answer. It's not you're not going to get, marked or anything in trouble. But as residents, do you all agree with these symbols that have been displayed in these schools? Yes or no? Absolutely. Good answer. Do you think that this town enables people like that to demonstrate hate? Do you think that this town accepts that kind of hate that is demonstrated in the schools? Yes or no? Do we accept it? Does the town accept it? Absolutely not. Do you also believe, and this is a fundamental thing I think, that if we do not take action, this can fester and can continue on and could maybe even escalate into some worse things? Do you all believe that? Okay. So with that said, I call upon you as a member of this community, not necessarily representing the Board of Health, but as just a member of this town, to take action. Now is the time, Because if we don't take action now, things will continue. So, as I said, you know, these hateful words, these symbols have no place in this town or anywhere in this country. Unfortunately, there are people who hate, and there's not much we can do about them. But we can do something about it as a town to say enough is enough, and now it's time to take action. So I ask not only the police department, which has done a great job, I ask the town officials, as well as the overall community, including children and parents, to step up, to report these incidents, to find out the individuals who are doing these deeds, and to say we're not going to tolerate it. I mean, I think, you know, and I'm sorry I'm coming off a little harsh, but I think this is what we have to do. It's nice to say we should all love each other, but unfortunately there are people who don't love us for our ethnicity, our race, or our religion. And that's just the way it is. But we don't have to accept it. So I ask that we take this moment, we honor our veterans and honor those who have served. Many of those veterans fought for the very things that we are against and that we are now experiencing on a minor level, I will say. But nonetheless, it's not good, okay? So I would just ask you all to, let's all step up as a community, as a team, as a force, to stop this and nip it in the bud while we can, and to say that we don't want to go down in history as a town that has a bunch of hateful people, because this town is too great for that. So again, I want to thank Josh for giving me this chance to talk. Sorry I went on, but I really think Josh is truly committed to serving this community. He's also on the Board of Health, and he really loves this town, and I really appreciate him for putting this event together. So again, thank you everyone for giving me this time.
And now I'd like to invite another leader of our community, Rabbi Mendy Kivman, co-director of the Metrowest Chabad House Community Center. And I want to thank you so much for being here, Rabbi Kivman, and for offering your leadership in this moment of need in Holliston.
Thank you very much. And truly, a big thank you and a yasher koach to Josh and Jenny for putting this together. I've known Josh since just before they moved here. And I'm proud, I'm kvelling with nachas that you don't just say things, you actually do something and bring all of us together here to make a difference today. We're all shaken by what's happened. Obviously, we're grateful to the police, to the select board, to the school faculty for the quick response and for handling this so expeditiously. The Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Menachem M. Schneerson, who established the Chabad House Jewish Community Center, emphasized that the world in which we live is not a jungle. There is a supreme being who takes a personal interest in the affairs of each and every individual, and everyone is accountable for their actions. The Rebbe taught us that we need to turn hate into action. When the forces of light and good encounter darkness and hate, without fail, light will always prevail. The fact that God created each and every one of us means that every one of us, regardless of our race or religion, are extremely important to God, and we have the unique purpose in this world. And that purpose can't be fulfilled by anyone else. When we recognize that, we and our children will come to appreciate the importance and value of each and every individual, whether they look and pray like us, or especially if they don't look and pray like us. The great scholar, the Rambam, Maimonides, taught that one positive action, one positive word, or even one positive thought can impact the entire world for good. Think about it. If one or a couple of kids at the school brought so much pain to our children in school and to the entire community, how much more so can we bring joy, comfort, and peace just by adding another good deed, another action of kindness, especially if it's to someone we don't even know? I encourage everyone here today and people of goodwill to try and add just 1 or 2 acts of goodness and kindness to your day, and you'll see the positive ripple effect. You can start by giving some charity, smiling to a random person at the checkout counter. Give an encouraging word to someone that's going through a tough time. And boy, a lot of people are going through a tough time these days. The Rebbe would say that you can't fight darkness with a broomstick. The only way to fight darkness is by adding light. In fact, just a little bit of light will dispel a great deal of darkness. You know, Hanukkah begins in just a few weeks on November 28th. We're going to light the Hanukkah candles, and the lights of the candles will bring light and warmth to the dark, cold nights of winter. I suggest that this year, every single one of us should light a menorah. Put it at your door. Put it at your window. Let it be seen. Do it proud. And if you need a menorah and candles, don't worry, just reach out to us and we'll give you one. And then on the second night of Hanukkah, Monday, November 29th, at 6 p.m., I invite everyone to come join us right here in front of Town Hall as we light the big Holliston public menorah. Let's send a message of light and love to those who are filled with darkness and hate. We will proudly say we are here to stay and we won't shy away. The Rebbe told us that the world is ready for a brighter day filled with light and peace. The world is ready for Mashiach, the Messianic age, an era of everlasting peace and light for all mankind. If you know the Shema, please join me for the first 2 verses together. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuso Leolam Va'ed. Holliston is truly a holy stone. It's a place where hate has no home. May God bless all of you for coming here today. May God bless our veterans, and may God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
Before I introduce our last 2 speakers, I'd like to share some words with you that were sent to us on behalf of the Superintendent of Schools and the Chief of Police. Many of you are aware that we've had a number of hate speech incidents, acts of violence, and vandalism in the bathrooms at both the middle and high schools in recent weeks. We stand united as the Holliston Public School District and Holliston Police Department to say there is no place for hate within Holliston. These recent acts of hatred, racism, anti-Semitism, and homophobia have wreaked havoc on both the schools and the community. And we cannot allow these incidents to define us as a community. This is not who we are in Holliston, and it has to stop. Too many of our students of color, our Jewish students, and members of our LGBTQ+ community have been hurt by these hateful acts and are traumatized by these acts of bias. The Holliston Public School Administration and the Holliston Police Department school resource officers are working together to identify the offenders at both locations and to restore justice to our schools. Both the middle school and high school have had conversations and lessons with all students crafted with resources from the Anti-Defamation League. And we continue to work with the ADL to embark on a No Place for Hate in Holliston Public Schools campaign. We are also working with community leaders to develop an action plan as a community together, as while these events may be happening within the walls of the schools, they are affecting this entire community, and we cannot do this work alone. We would like to thank those who have come forward hoping to help lead some of this work with us as stakeholders in this work, including parents, clergy, and town leaders, and others who are partnering with and willing to collaborate with us as we respond to these incidents of hate speech. How do we begin to change this narrative while we are in the midst of this pain? This work will not be and is not short-term. It must be long-term. Focused work that looks at all forms of hate and ensures that we are building school communities that not only denounce racism and hatred, but also work tirelessly to build schools that are inclusive, safe, and supportive for all. Thank you to the community members who have also reached out to share their voice, support, expertise, and for helping to empower others within our greater Holliston community to take action. This work is about community, collaboration, and a sense of connectedness. This was respectfully submitted by Susan Kuska, the Superintendent, and Chief Matthew Stone of the Holliston Police Department. We have two more people who are going to speak with us today. The first is Mary Greendale from the Holliston Board of Assessors.
I don't think that being a member of the Board of Assessors really being a member of the Board of Assessors qualifies me to be up here. But being a resident of Holliston for 56 years, I think does add to my credibility. I came here from the city of Springfield, 189,000 people in a very diverse community. And I was surrounded by the families of soldiers and the soldiers themselves. In my day, everyone in the neighborhood in that city participated in raising a child. It was the schools, it was the religious institutions, it was the police officer who walked the beat. It was also the neighbors and the parents, the teachers, the store owners, and even the street sweepers. They were real people, by the way, they weren't big machines. No one would tolerate bad behavior. And if a kid misbehaved or said something inappropriate, it didn't take long for word to get back to my mother. And needless to say, consequences ensued, and I speak from experience. The veterans and that generation that I got to share time and life with were models for behavior. But look at what today's kids witness in bad behavior. From sports figures to entertainers, commentators to politicians, the evening news, and from one another on social media and even in real life. Unfortunately, they may witness it firsthand right here. How do they process that, given that they probably don't have the judgment that they will have 10 years down the road when their brains finish developing? It seems to me that kids need guardrails that tell them or remind them what civil behavior looks like or feels like, and that hateful behavior is unacceptable. I decided to look up the words politically correct in the Urban Dictionary. If you've never spent any time looking at the Urban Dictionary, take a minute and do it, because it translates language that you and I might know into the modern vernacular that your kids or grandkids might know. So I asked, what does political correctness mean nowadays? And part of the definition is this, excuse me, being polite to someone is the same thing as surrendering to someone. How can you have a civilized community if you are always putting things in the context of war? Winning versus surrendering. No opinion can go unchallenged. Being negative and hateful are acceptable. I'm no psychologist, but I believe that fear is the tender underbelly of all the anger in the nation. Fear that we are vulnerable, and fear of people that we think are different. So how can we influence our kids right here to be polite and civil when what they see is not? How do we learn to manage our own fears so we can help our kids manage theirs? Step one starts with us right now. Creating a community where everyone, no matter how different they are from us, is safe from abuse. Physical abuse, emotional abuse, mental abuse. Because writing hateful statements, calling people derogatory names, all of that is about abuse. We all have fears, and we all need to manage our fears in healthy ways. Talk to one another, share activities and local events, learn about one another, be neighbors, become friends. Let's share our differences and celebrate. We must not cede civility to the fear of people who are different, because underneath it all, each of us is different. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mary. And finally, we're going to hear from Josh Mann from the Holliston Board of Health. Josh stood up earlier this week. He made all of this happen. He's been working tirelessly with so many people behind the scenes. And I just want to express for all of us, Josh, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Over 120 years ago, on August 28th, 1899, not too far from here on Hill Street in Holliston, Rabbi Hyman Shocher of Congregation Mishkan Tefillah in Boston led a jubilant procession of musicians with people singing and dancing that brought Holliston's first Torah scroll, the heart of the Jewish people, to Holliston's first synagogue. At that dedication ceremony, he addressed the large crowd of both Jewish and non-Jewish celebrants and said this: "We should be grateful to Almighty God that this country is an asylum for the Israelites, as well as all other downtrodden and oppressed peoples of all lands. Here we have found a home we can worship God in our own way." For well over 120 years, Holliston has been home to many different people of many different backgrounds. It has been our community, our asylum, our place where we feel safe and secure and accepted. A few weeks ago, that sense of safety, security, and belonging was smashed. Make no mistake about it. Swastikas, the N-word, and homophobic slurs are threats to students and residents in our town. And a threat to one of us is a threat to all of us. A community is not defined by the occurrence of these types of ugly incidents, but rather by how we come together to respond to them. As you can see here today, our community stands together as one and will not be intimidated. To the people or person that wrote those messages of hate, I have a message for you. Am Yisrael Chai. Thank you all for being here and showing your support. May the next time that we all meet here together again as a community, it be to sing and dance and celebrate, just like Rabbi Shocher's procession over 120 years ago. Thank you to Dr. Kuska and the school administration and staff, as well as Chief Stone and the Holliston Police Department for taking these incidents seriously and working hard to make sure that they are addressed appropriately so that they never happen again. Finally, thank you to our veterans, military service members, police, and emergency responders. It is because of your bravery, sacrifice, and service that we are able to live free and be here together today. Thank you.
On behalf of Josh, I want to thank all of the speakers who were here today. Again, the Holliston Police Department for partnering with the schools and for being here to keep us all safe today. Jewish Family Services of Metrowest, who covered the cost of extra security here today. Thank you. CJP, ADL, JFS of Metrowest for their help with organizing all of this. HCAT for providing audio equipment and video broadcast. Thank you. Superintendent Kuska and the school administration and staff for their hard work. You're going to be able to continue to follow the progress of this situation, hear about other opportunities to gather, get updates on what's been happening on the Facebook page that was started, Enough is Enough. If you're not on that page, please hop on and like it. And please know that clergy of all faiths, we are all here to support and help you in any way we can. Call us, email us, text us, stop by our offices. We're here for you. We stand with you, and we stand with our children. Thank you so much for being here.